Let's go back. All right, 12.4 Box and Whisker Plot. This is review from middle school, but we're going to go into it a little bit more analytical way. We'll talk about the quartiles and range, median, and interpreting plots. Okay? All right, so box and whiskers is just one way to organize and represent the data. You do need to know the different parts of this. So the minimum or the lower extreme, sometimes it's called minimum, sometimes it's called lower extreme. You do need to know those two different words. That means this number that goes right here. Okay, that is the lowest number. The maximum or the upper extreme would be the highest number in your data set. This right here, this part of the box is Q1, which is quartile 1. This part of the box is quartile 3. And then this in the middle, this line in the middle of the box, or somewhere in the box, is the median, or Q2. Now, between Q1 and Q3, the difference between Q3 and Q1, that's called the IQR, which is your interquartile range. Okay, anytime you hear range, it's always subtraction, the difference between the highest and lowest. All right, and again, that's what range is, difference between highest entry and the lowest entry. Now, the median is that middle number when the data is listed from lowest to highest in order. That's that middle number if you happen to have an odd number of data entries. If you have an even number of data entries, then you have to take the two middle ones and make an average of that. Okay? It's also known as Q2 in a box and whiskers. The main thing that you have to know is that each part of the box and whisker plot is 25% of the data. So that's why it's called quartiles. Quartiles as in there are 4 quarters in a dollar. There's 4 quarter parts of data in your box and whiskers. So this part is 25, this part is 25, this part is 25, and this part is 25. The whole part of the box is 50% of your data. Okay? So they may ask you how much data falls between the minimum and Q3. Well, that would be 75%. Okay, they could ask you questions like that. And you won't have to make a box and whiskers in Algebra 1, but you do need to be able to interpret data that they give you. They may give you specific numbers and say what percentile is that score. Say, for instance, if I had a lower one of, say, 20. Let's make sure you can see that. Say our minimum was 20 and our maximum was 130, and say Q2 was 90, Q1 was 60, and Q3 was 100. Okay. And say these are test scores, and they would say, well, what percent of the test scores fell between 60 and 100, and that would be 50%. How many test scores fell below 90? Well, that would be 50%. How many test scores fell between 20 and 100? Well, that would be 75%. Okay, so that's what they're going to be asking you on this. As long as you can set them up and interpret the data, you'll be fine on this section. Again, it is review, and that's why it's a very short video, because you already know how to do all this with everything. And in your calculator, remember, if you go to, pull up my calculator, remember, it'll give you this information. If you go in and see if I have any statistics in here. Of course not. All right, let me just throw some numbers in here. And remember, you don't have to worry about putting it in order. Your calculator will do all that stuff for you. All right, so if you wanted to find stat, calc, and all this information, you go to one bar stat. Remember, X bar is your mean. Your standard deviation is the standard sigma right here. The number of items I put in was 7. But there's your minimum number, which is your lower extreme. And there's Q1, your median, which is Q2 or 15, and your Q3, and your maximum is 81. It does everything for you. So that's one of the reasons why we don't spend a lot of time doing this, because you've got all that information in your calculator. Alright, so again, you put in your stuff into stat edit, put in your information, then you go to stat and you calculate number 1, which is 1 bar stat, and hit enter. And it'll tell you all that stuff. And this little arrow means scroll down. So all the information you need is right there in your picture. Okay? So if you have any questions with this, come see me. Thank you, and see you in class.